Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining another DevTest Community Webcast. Today's webcast, we're going to be covering the latest release, which is DevTest 10.4. On the phone today, we have Kastu Bordi, who is the Senior Director of Product Management for CA Service Virtualization. If you have any questions as we're going through the session today, you can feel free to enter those into the Q&A box. You can find the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. If you don't see it there, there is a button down at the bottom. There is a row of circular icons, and you can just select Q&A from that list to maximize it, and it'll appear on the right-hand side of your screen. As we're going through the session, you can put your questions in there, and we'll get to them as we can. Or if you'd like to ask a verbal question, we'll also open the phone line up at the end of the session. So if you have a question you'd rather ask over the phone, you can go hold it until the end, and we'll take those questions at that time. We'll also be doing a short poll at the end of the session. If you could just let us know what you thought of the topic today, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, I think we're ready to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to turn the call over to Kastu. You can take it away, Kastu.
Sure. Thanks, Melanie. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Kastu Bordi. I will be presenting what's new in CA Service Virtualization 10.4. and also why you could upgrade to the latest release. Just before we get into the agenda, the release is version 10.4 on September 24th, right? And we look at all the features, major features that we've added as a part of 10.4, as well as, we look into the basics of how to upgrade and what are the different things to keep in mind when upgrading from a prior version to the latest version 10.4. Right, so having said that, I will start with the agenda. So why upgrade? New service virtualization, that's the first thing. Then second one is the upgrading tips and tricks. The third one is all the resources that we have for you guys to go through and get ready for upgrading to the latest version. And then finally, as Melanie mentioned, we can go through question and answers on the phone. But if you have any questions in the meanwhile, please feel free to post it in the chat window. Okay, so starting with the first one, which is why upgrade, right? Now, there has to be a reason why you would upgrade or look at some features and say, yes, I like that feature and I would like to upgrade. Or it could also be that sometime down the line, maybe in 6 months or a year, you're going to look at a feature that you have added in the product and that might be useful to you. Right, so planning for upgrade is also an important aspect of upgrading to the latest version. So the first slide we have is the versions and their end of service. So if you look at these right now, your way past version 8.5, version 9.0. If you see, this was last year, a year back, that there was end of service for these two versions. Earlier in the year, there was end of service for 9.1. And for 9.5 and 9.5.1, the end of service was July 20th. And so coming up soon, towards the end of this year, is the end of service for version 10.0. And these are the timelines that we have here for 10.1, 10.2, 10.3. Right, so the assumption here is that you are on one of the supported versions today, which is version 10 and above. Even if you're not, we would strongly recommend you to upgrade to the latest version. And, I have my information on this in this presentation towards the end. Feel free to reach out to me if you need any assistance in upgrading from whatever version you are on to the latest. I'm just hoping you're not on 7X because that the end of service for that was over a couple of years back. Right. So basically, upgrading to 10.4, you get access to support experts, right, and faster issue resolution when issue is reported. Now, the reason for that being, since we have released 10.4 and 10.3, 10.2, it's very easy to give patches and any solutions to those questions or those issues that you open as compared to something that's unsupported or not supported. Right, so upgrading to the latest gives you the maximum possibilities in getting the resolutions faster, as well as getting any kind of patches or fixes. Going through the major features / enhancements in 10.4, the first one that we released, and we go through most of these. So the major one was Jenkins plugin, which we released not at 10.4, but we released that a couple of months before 10.4. That was one of the most requested features, similar to Service Catalog that we released in 10.3. Jenkins plugin was also one of the most requested features for service virtualization. So that was released, and if you go to the Jenkins.io site, you should be able to just grab the plugin and use it in your CI/CD pipeline. The next one is based on the customer feedback. We have made some improvements to the Service Catalog. Then we have added a new component called as IAM, which is Identity and Access Manager. The reason being, if you look at 10.3, we had a virtual service catalog which used IAM, right? And for the past so many years, the registry is used, its internal component for identity and access management, right? So on the version of 10.3, we had it was there was a split between how the components worked in the product. So that's why, and again, we moved to the most recent IAM. That's the component name we'll be calling it, which is Identity and Access Manager. We moved to that because of the great security for passwords, authentication, authorization. All those are robust rather than what we had, because the technology that we used till 10.3 was about 4 or 5 years back. Right? So basically, catalog, the enterprise dashboard, and the registry, all those have same authentication, which is the IAM. And just to let you know that enterprise dashboard also gets its own login screen. So if you recollect, the enterprise dashboard did not have a login screen at all, right? You could just go to 15.06 and you could look at the dashboard. But now, based on customer feedback, we've added that the login screen there as well. So IAM basically covers the service catalog, the enterprise dashboard, as well as the registry authentication. The next most important feature that was requested was OpenAPI 3.0. That was basically an extension of Swagger. So Swagger 2.0 was released long time back, and a year back or so, OpenAPI 3.0 came in, and with some new features. And so we got requests from our customers like yourself to add support for that. So within a year's time, we were able to add the OpenAPI support, which is to be able to use a Swagger doc or a Swagger spec and create virtual services and our tests. Now, the support for this is through the portal as well as workstation both. Right? So we've covered all those areas. Kafka support, the messaging, we've added support for that as well, because a lot of, if you've seen the world's moving towards that, Kafka, even though it was introduced a few years back, it's picking up now. So we've added support for that in terms of messaging. Of course, we do that only through the workstation, so the support is there for creating the tests as well as virtual services. And we've added the new concept of telemetry, and we've changed our installer a little bit for that, so to collect your customer experience data, so that we can get information on how you're using the product and how we can better and efficiently serve you based on your requirements. Okay? And the last one being portal enhancements. Now, in terms of portal enhancements, we have received some feedback from customers saying that they would like to have a enterprise-wide, or actually let me say this, registry-wide settings. If you recollect, if you go into the portal and if you go into the monitor where you look at all the list of VSPs that are running, it's that every user had the ability to set that to show me 5 virtual services at a time. Refresh rate was, we could do that. And unfortunately, we were not saving those parameters in the prior releases, right? So the request that we got was many enterprises would like to say, okay, I want this to be refreshed at a particular time, which is, maybe 60 seconds or a minute, and I want to see 15 or 20 virtual services at a time, right? So they wanted to give the admin the capability to add those things there. So as a part of that, we've added that, and again, of course, the user can go into any login, he can change whatever he wants, so that should not be a problem. But by default, we have given the ability to set those parameters in the monitoring aspect of the portal. So having covered the major features and enhancements, we'll drill down into a few of those. The first one being Jenkins plugin. As I mentioned, it's on the Jenkins.io website, and if you search for TA Service Virtualization Jenkins plugin, you should be able to get that and then download the plugin from there. Right? And there are links to our DocOps site, which gives you information on how to install the plugin, how to use the various steps that are a part of the plugin. Now, considering that DevTest is a suite of products which has service virtualization and application test, we've added support for both of these in the plugin. Right? So basically, if you look at the screen there, the build, so the first one is a deploy test, which is the assumption is that you have a test already. It's the app test, right? And so we could run that to the plugin. And so that's on the app test side. And the next four are the deploy virtual service, start virtual service, stop virtual service, and undeploy virtual service. So this is on the service virtualization side. Right? So basically, the plugin covers both service virtualization and application tests, as I mentioned. The next part is, the most important part is the question that I've received is, what version do we need to be on? Right, so if you followed our releases in the past, version 10.3, in version 10.3, we released a new API for application test. Right? And so the main thing to remember here is, if you are looking at using the virtual service aspect of the plugin, it should work fine with 10.3, 10.2, 10.1, and 10.0. That should not be a problem, because the API that we use is the DCN API, which has not changed since then. It should not be a problem, that should work. On the test side, the deploy test side, we're using the API that was introduced in 10.3. So if you are on any version other than 10.3, let's say on 10.1 or 10.0, the plugin will not work for you. Right? So for our test, you have to be, to use a deploy test step, you have to be on 10.3 or above, of course. And for virtualization, it could be on 10.0, 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, or 10.4, not a problem. Right? And the most important aspect of this is we can use the pipeline scripts are supported to execute the plugin commands. Right? So it's not just that you have to go through the UI and do all these the magic here, but all the pipeline scripts are also supported. Right? So definitely, I would urge you to go to Jenkins.io site, download the plugin, and start playing around with it. So many customers that I've spoken to say that they have a requirement in their CI/CD pipeline to do this orchestration. And so there you are. We've come out with the official plugin for service virtualization, and we'd love to hear your feedback on the plugin. So that's the Jenkins plugin. Moving on to IAM, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier. So basically, IAM, so we created a new service for IAM. Now, considering that IAM is our main identity and access management component, that component needs to start first. So considering that we're using all these different components, initially we used to say start the dashboard first, right? But now, because all these components come under the umbrella of IAM, so the IAM service is a new service that's introduced in 10.4, that needs to be started first. Right? And then you can start the dashboard as usual, and then you can start registry and all the other components, whatever order that you choose to do. Right? So that's basically that. All the authentication happens through IAM. Right? So now, what the screen that we're showing here is user federation, which is the to connect to an LDAP, right, or an Active Directory. So if you remember, and I'm sure you guys have done this in the past, prior to this release, Active Directory configuration was through our two files, right? The XML for the LDAP providers and the authentication file. The two files, you had to go into each file and enter all the information there, give information about your LDAP, the server, authentication file, the binding and the credentials, and all those things. You had to put it in there. Then you had to say, okay, what groups in your LDAP map to what roles in service virtualization, and save those two files, and then restart the registry. And then, again, I can say that now, literally hope that it worked. Right? And then if you factoring with something, you had to go back, change it, and then come back, restart, and so on. Right? So it was a very user-prone to errors. Right? So as a result, we've added all that has now come into the IAM UI. Right? So if you look at this, you are able to put in your connection URL, your LDAP, Active Directory server. That's the connection right then and there. Right? We don't need to restart anything now. And same thing for buying credentials. Make sure that username and the password all work fine. Right? So that's one of the good things. Now, the question is, even though I went through all these, your question might be, okay, what's the next for me? Why am I even looking at this, and how is it going to affect me? Right? So we have many customers who are using multiple registries. Right? So today, what they're doing is every registry, because it has its own APLs, right? That same user that could be across registries is there in every registry APL. Right? So if a customer has 5 registries across the enterprise, we have to maintain 5 ACL lists individually on each of those registries. Right? So now what we are doing here is our installer has changed. So the first thing in the installer is it asks you if you have an IAM. If not, which if you did not install IAM before, or if you did not use the service catalog before, you would have to install it afresh. So through the installer, when the installer, one of the steps is to install IAM. You would install IAM, and basically the registry that's installed there would point to it automatically. Right? So then your registry starts and everything works fine. Now, when you go to the second registry that you have in your enterprise, and when you want to upgrade that to 10.4, it will ask you if you have an IAM or you want to install it standalone. Now, ideally, what we would like to see is we would like to see all your registries connected to one IAM, right? So you would provide the location of the IAM that was installed with the first registry, and so on, right? Then it would be, you could do the same thing. Now, there might be scenarios in which if it's maintained by, if your registries are maintained by different users, right, or different admins, then you would choose to have separate IAMs. In that case, you would still get the benefit of this UI, right, for doing all these things. So, and you could choose in that case to keep IAM separate for each registry. Right, so 2 scenarios there. If you want all your registries to be a part of one IAM component, or you can choose to have separate IAMs for your registry. Now, if you look at the screen here, this is what I mentioned about LDAP configuration. Now, if you look below in Manage, there is users, sessions, events. The users are any users that you would have in your DevTest installation. And if it's LDAP, the users would only be created here once a user logs in, right, because it's connected to LDAP. Your roles are here too. So if you look at this, the roles would be whatever roles you have mapped to the groups in LDAP, right? So those roles would show here, and the users that are a part of it. So management of this is becoming a bit easier, and in one centralized location, if you choose to do that. And so we've done some customer validations with a couple of customers, actually 3 customers, and we've received good feedback from those customers for IAM, which is good news for us. So that's the IAM component. Moving on to the next one, which is Open API support. As I mentioned, this is Swagger, the next version of Swagger, which is Swagger 2.0. We had support for Swagger 2.0. I think in the past, for about 3 to 4 years, we've had that. We've always had that through the portal and workstation. In terms of OpenAPI 3.0, that's the next generation Swagger, we have added support for that in the workstation as well as the portal. So you can choose to create your virtual service using the spec from the portal, or you can do that from the workstation itself by providing. Now, one thing you would notice is that we go through the workstation. We initially used to call it Swagger 2.0. Right now, that option basically means you can use a Swagger 2.0 spec, or you can use a Swagger 3.0 spec. Does not matter. Right, so it's transparent depending on what, so you know, when the file loads, when you load the file, we detect that it's Swagger 2.0 and or Swagger 3.0, and accordingly we make the decision on what process is to be used. Right, so that's on OpenAPI. Now I have a quick video on that I'd like to share. So it's a short video, and I'll go through it and display it right now.
Hello and welcome to DevTest Solutions. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a virtual service from a Swagger or OpenAPI specification. And creating a virtual service in this way can be very useful when the service that you want to virtualize is still being developed. So starting with DevTest 10.4, we now support OpenAPI 3.0 specifications as well as Swagger 2.0. I should point out, though, that you can create a virtual service from an OpenAPI spec using the same features that were present in Swagger 2.0, but the new features that were added as part of OpenAPI 3.0 that are not supported. So in this video, I'm going to use a Swagger document that's included with the DevTest installation for the Forward Cars demo application. And this functionality is available in DevTest Portal as well as in Workstation. For this video, I'm going to show you how to do it in Portal, but the process is pretty much the same in both. I'll also point out that if you need more information on either process, there is additional information available in DocOps. If you get there from the portal, just click View DevTest Documentation on the home page. You can also just open a browser and go to docops.ca.com/DTS for DevTest Solutions. And once you're there, in the search field, you can just type Swagger. And then you'll see the available content for both Portal and Workstation. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to Portal. And to get started, I just click Create and Virtual Service. And then I just select Specification. And then I'm going to enter a name for the virtual service that I want to create and a brief description. And now you can either enter a URL for the Swagger or OpenAPI document that you want to use, or you can click Select File to browse your file system. And once I have the document selected, I'm ready to click Continue. And this screen shows the operations that are in the selected document. And you can use the checkboxes on this page to determine which operations you want to virtualize. And you can also change the line type of the request and response. And now that I have the selections that I want, I can go ahead and click Finish. And in the Collect Transaction step, I can see the operations that I just selected here on the left. And on the right, I can see the default request and response for the selected operation. If you like, you can also manually add transactions, or you can modify the requests and responses. I'm going to accept what I have here and go ahead and click Next. And in the Configure step, you can see that the JSON data protocol was automatically selected on the request side. Because this service involves REST calls, I'm also going to add the REST protocol. And to do that, I just select the protocol in the available column and then click the arrow to move it to the selected column. And I'm ready to click Next. The Configure DPH step lets you modify the configuration of the data protocols. I'm just going to accept the default settings here, so I can go ahead and click Save and Next. And then in the final step, I'm going to save and deploy the virtual service, and then click Save at the bottom of the page. And you can see that the virtual service was successfully saved and deployed. And that's pretty much all there is to creating a virtual service from the Swagger or OpenAPI specification. I hope you found this video useful, and thank you for viewing it. For more detailed information about this product, click the information bubble in the top right corner to
Okay, so hope that video was useful for you. Now, you can look at our DocOps that as Paul mentioned in the video. You can go there. And also, you could look up YouTube and find all the videos there. Okay? So moving on, the next thing we looked at was a service catalog, as mentioned earlier. Service catalog was released as a part of 10.3. And based on some feedback that we heard from customers, a couple of things that were not in 10.3, a service catalog, were we did not have a service at that time for service catalog. We had to start it from the command line. So we fixed that. One of the important requests that we heard from customers was to show them the response header details. Right? So we added that as well. And just in the configuration tab, we replace the out-of-the-box VM options file with an application.yaml file, which makes configuring of the catalog easier. Right? So that's in terms of the catalog, service catalog. Now this is an example of where we are showing the header details for a response call. Response data, yeah. Okay. So the next thing, as I mentioned earlier, is a collection of customer experience data. So when you install 10.4 service virtualization, you'll come across a screen which basically talks about customer experience improvement. Right? So basically, it's sending metrics to CA so that we are able to help you better in terms of the products and the services that we provide. Right? So again, we collect some metrics and all that information, and we also have a video on what metrics we collect, all that on the DocOps site for 10.4 as well. Right? So again, the benefits of this, we have a centralized system profile where we keep information on all our customers, expert support contact, because then when you call in, you will already know what environment you're talking about, what's the configuration, what version you are on, how many, the number of transactions, the power users, and so on. Right? And that should also help you plan better for upgrades, because and then when you reach out to us, it would be easier for us because your data would already be with us, and we should be able to assist you better than before. Right? So that's on the customer collection. The next one is, and we always like to mention this, is that we released CodeSV and SV Community Edition. Both of them were released last year. CodeSV is basically a Java API that we have for developers specifically to code the behavior of an endpoint. Right? So this is an in-process virtualization. Right? So this you do it through your IDE. This is a separate product, separate offering from CA. It's at codesv.io. Just go there, download it, and start using it. It's basically when you're creating a unit test, you're able to create virtual services in process, and that's how you are able to verify what works and what does not work in creating going through your code. Right, so that is CodeSV, and that's a free offering from CA. The other one is the Service Virtualization Community Edition, and the URL there is there, and that you can go there and download the Community Edition. Again, that's a free offering too. The package size is about 300 MB or less, and it's a desktop application. Just download it and play around with it. It's very simple. The support protocols are HTTP, SOAP, and so on. Right? So you can go to the URL, or if you just go to trials.ca.com, you should be able to search for CA Service Virtualization there and download your copy. Right? So real quick for CodeSV, this is you use Java code in your IDE, Eclipse, or IntelliJ, and create your virtual services, in-process virtual service. Right? And this is a snapshot of the Community Edition where you are able to record. Right? That's the main part. You're able to record as you are able to do it in the portal or workstation. You're able to record. You're able to create virtual services using Swagger, Virgil, and so on. Right? And you're able to create virtual services. You're able to run virtual services. Again, it's a free offering, so do not expect this to be performance enabled or something like that. Right? Of course, it's a free offering. So the idea here is that you don't need to download the workstation. You don't need to go to the portal. You can use this once you have this, create a virtual service here real quick and test it out. Right? And also there's another few functionality here which is similar to what Postman offers, right? Which is where you go to Postman and put in the URL and see what the request, what the responses are. So, so we have a similar version here as well, and it's called the API Explorer if you look at the top here. So if you've not looked at this, please go to attach.ca.com, download it, and play around with it. Right? So once you release this, one of the most important questions that we got was, is there a correlation between Community Edition and the Enterprise Edition? Right? So let's say you create a virtual service in the Community Edition here. How do I take it to the enterprise edition. In the first releases that we had, you had to actually just copy the files or the MAR files and upload it into the portal. But this version, which was released in April, we are able to point to the location of the enterprise version. So this we are doing from the community edition, right? So you're able to point to the enterprise version, so registry name, the username, and the password, and when you connect, you're able to see the VSC, virtual server environment, on from the enterprise edition. Right? So here, if you see the select VSC, then drop down and you select the port and hit next, and then that's pretty much it. Virtual service that you had created here in the community edition is up and running, would be up and running in the enterprise edition. Okay. So very easy if there's a team that's just starting out on first virtualization, and if they think, downloading, installing the workstation is a big deal, and then you have to connect to the registry, blah, blah, all that. So this could be a lifesaver there, where they can just use this IDE, community edition, create the virtual service, and then just deploy directly to the enterprise edition VSC. Right. So this is what we have, again, done based on the feedback that we received from our customers. Right. So moving on to tips and tricks for upgrade. So for a 10.4, we need a new license file, and the reason being the customer experience screen that I showed you, we've added, we're calling it telemetry, and we have added a couple of options there. So for that, we had to change our license file. I know it could be a hassle, but again, we can just request that file from our licensing team. So again, as you would know, starting with 10.3, we've mandated that you provide us with the MAC address of the machine where they're installing the enterprise dashboard. And again, I'd like to go into the details of why we did that. The reason being, there are a lot of customers who came back to us saying, hey, can you give me an idea of how many dashboards or how many registries you have in an environment? Unfortunately, we didn't have an answer because, as you know, the prior file that we had prior to 10.3 was a license file that you could use in n number of installations. But you could use that same across 100 different dashboards, and there was no stopping for that. Right? So based on feedback that we received from customers, again, if you have a need for multiple dashboards, we need to understand why you need multiple dashboards. Right? One dashboard should serve the purpose across an enterprise, and then you can have a number of registries connected to it, and then VSC and coordinator and simulator. Right? So the assumption here is that you'll be providing the MAC address of where you're installing the dashboard, and then the usual process, you'll get the file, and then you'll put in the file, and then you upgrade or install 10.4. It will prompt you for the file, and you will give the new file. Right? So preparing for the upgrades, backing up the environment. If you use our product for a long time, you would actually know you would back up the assets, the DevTest directory itself. Just so that nothing is lost, you would back up the registry database and the enterprise dashboard database. So basically, we're talking about the LisaDB database out of the box and drivers DB. But again, if you've configured and most of you would have configured the registry and dashboard, SQL Server, Oracle, or whatever, then you would have your own registry databases and enterprise dashboard databases. So the best practice is to back those up. Right? And when you prepare for the database migration, make sure that you have the full permissions, the DBA privileges. Now, the reason being, and we've come across so many number of upgrades where, some few years back, 2-3 years back, when virtualization was installed, with the particular credentials, all that was done, it was installed. Now, after that, the DBA took those credentials out, and the DBA privileges out, and he only gave those privileges that were good enough to have the virtualization product work with the developers and testers, right? So if those credentials are still being used, and if you try upgrading, it won't work, right? Because as a part of the upgrade, sometimes we update some tables, sometimes we add a table, so we need those kind of DBA privileges, right? So again, when you upgrade and if you come across any issues, the registry.log file will give you information saying, you don't have certain permissions. That should be a flag for you. to go and get DBA privileges, at least for the upgrade portion, right? And then you can go back to the other privileges that you were using before. Right? Also know your host name, IP address, if any SSL certificates are being used, LDAP configuration, database configuration, all that should be known. But again, as long as you back up the relevant files, the site properties, local properties, user properties, you should be all set with all these things. Right? For upgrading the IAM, now this slide is only relevant if you use service catalog with the prior release. Right? So with the service catalog in the prior release came with its own IAM. So again, that IAM will not work out of the box. That IAM needs to be upgraded. It's to upgrade that. Basically, you would need the configuration files, the local site, authentication providers files, and so on. Right now, so the most important question is that we've gotten from customers is how are we using IAM? So through the installer, you're able to put down IAM, or that's good. As the service starts, IAM is up and running. Right, but what happens and how do I get, is that a manual process to get all my users, roles, as well as my LDAP information into IAM? Right, so okay, that way always exists, which is manually you can do it. The instructions are in the video on the DocOps site and as well as in the text format there. In addition to that, then you are upgrading from a prior version. We show you a screen which says, okay, we've detected that these are the users and these are the roles and this is the LDAP. What would you like to do? Right? So basically, at that point, you can choose to say, okay, get all my users from my registry ACLs into the IAM. Right? So all that's taken care of. The roles are migrated, the LDAP information is migrated, and the user information is migrated. So the important part to consider here is that database migration assumes that it's not an LDAP migration. Right, so if it's connected to an LDAP, we don't get all the users from LDAP and push it in here. Right? The way we do this is basically only if, let's say, you're not connected to an LDAP, but you're using out of the box ACLs, which is your users, exist in the ACL for registry and Redis. That's when we take those and migrate those. Right? If it's an LDAP, then the users remain in LDAP. And I don't want to get into too much details here because it could get complicated. But if you follow the way our LDAP works, every time a user logs in for the first time into the portal or in the UI, we add that user also to our database. Right? So all those are technical details, but again, that remains the same. Basically, the gist of it here is that you are able to migrate your roles and LDAP definitions and user information into the new IAM. Now, every time you upgrade a registry, it's going to ask you for that, right? Okay. This best practices, as usual, this will not change. Upgrade in a sandbox. Make sure that your upgrade process is smooth and you understand, and make sure that after you upgrade the sandbox environment, that the virtual services and tests work as expected. Right? If you are interested in any features like the Open API feature or Jenkins plugin, make sure you familiarize yourself with all those. Right? And 2 ways to upgrade. As usual, as always, in case upgrade new location. Nothing's changed here. This has been the case for the past 5 releases. If you can do an in-place upgrade or you can do a new location upgrade. Right? Download the installer, request a new license key, shut down all the services because it is an upgrade. That's why it's a brand new install. Then, of course, you just go straight, the installer starts installing. Right? When you run the installer, configure your properties files. Make sure, and this is one of the commonly seen issues that we come across, which is browser cache, right? That messes up your login for the dashboard, the price dashboard, and also the portal, right? So make sure that you clear your browser cache, and basically then you start your components one by one. Make sure, as I mentioned earlier at the start of the call, IAM should be started first, and then you start the dashboard, the registry, and then after that, whatever you want for the portal, you see coordinator generator and so on. Post-installation, make sure you're able to connect to the IAM. So IAM basically is similar to all our other UIs, right? If you install a demo server, we create a shortcut for the forward cars, we create a shortcut for the catalog, we create a shortcut for the portal, and the enterprise dashboard. Similarly, we are creating a shortcut for the IAM UI now on the dashboard, right? Considering using Windows. So if not, go to the DevTest/bin folder and start and connect to the UI. Right, so basically you connect to the UI, IAM UI, make sure it's up and running, then you connect to the dashboard, make sure it's up and running, then you connect to the registry, all the other components to the dashboard. You're able to see what registries are up, and you're able to see what components on each registry are up. You should look at that, make sure the portal is connecting, make sure the workstation is connecting to the registry, everything works as usual. If you have an existing VSI, VSM, right-click and deploy goes to the VSE, make sure that deploy works fine. Again, there is a workstation. You can do the same for the portal as well. Verify the deploy versus service, use the system under test, make calls to the VSE, make sure it works as usual. If you're using application test, do the same thing. You have a test, run a test, and verify the test results, right? So this is all to make sure that after upgrade, all your functionality that existed before works in the seamless manner as before. Right. Talking about resources, you can go to one of the things that is not very well known, and I'd like to point out here is release comparison. Right. So if you go to docops.ca.com and look for the release comparison, every release of a product, right, has this, which is release comparison, which compares, it tells you about the features that existed in the past and in what release they were added, right? So anytime you say, oh, you know what, I need to find out when OpenAPI 3.0 was added, you can go to the release comparison and find that information. And documentation, if you look, and this is a snapshot of the DocOps site. Right. We have a special section for you which talks about preparing your dev test upgrade here. Right? And in that, you have prepare materials, know your IT environment, back up your environment, and then prepare for database migration. Right? So just take a look at this, and you should get all the information prepared for upgrading. In addition to that, we also have a community upgrade center. Right? So you should be able to find that from the communities, and I'm assuming here that you are an active user on the community site. That's where we are able to connect with other customers and our CAP members and get response to all the questions. And also as well as open the ideas of enhancements there. And so that's the URL, ca.2, that's a small short URL, SA upgrade CNTR. And so when you go to that, that basically gives you some videos on upgrading, what's new, and so on. Right? You should be able to get all that information there. This was created by our SWAT team for service virtualization. Okay. Then there are install and configuration videos as well. As I mentioned, this is from YouTube. So all those videos do exist on YouTube, so make sure you go to that URL. So all you can basically go to YouTube and then search for service virtualization or search for DevTest solution 10.4, and you should be able to get. If you look at the screen here, if you look at all these videos, they're all for 10.4. Right? All these videos are for 10.4, so make sure you go there and watch those 9 videos. And as usual, please feel free to reach out to us and also if you have any questions on anything related to the product. We have an education course that's coming up soon for 10.4 installation and configuration. Similar to that, we try to make sure that we are on the latest and greatest version of our courses that we offer. And that course should be coming up soon towards the end of the month or early part of November. Now, the other thing that I'd like to mention is the roadmap sessions that the product management does for service virtualization. So those are published on the ca.com site. If you go to ca.com/roadmap and then you look for service virtualization/DevTest, you should be able to find the upcoming sessions for that. Right? And why is your participation important? Because it gives you a glimpse of what's coming up in the product. as well as any questions that you might have in terms of, okay, how about this feature, how about that feature, and so on. Right? So it gives us a good stage to collaborate and talk about what's coming up as well as what are your requirements. Okay, if you still need help, you contact your support for help as usual. Connect with your account reps and contact the presenters. You can reach out to me. That's my email address, kaustav.wortley@ca.com, as well as Peter Vlapek, so peter.vlapek@ca.com. He's also part of the product management team. So feel free to reach out to us, and if you have any questions on anything related to the product, right? Of course, if it's, I would, it's okay if you were to open a support ticket and also CC me on that, and this is the ticket you open. I'd be more than happy to look into it as well. Right, so this is one thing that I'd like to mention. And then we've gone through the new features in 10.4. We are able to prepare for an upgrade, perform an upgrade, and verify that the upgrade works fine. And you're able to utilize the service virtualization support as well as the upgrade resources. By that, we mean the YouTube videos, as well as the upgrade center, as well as our documentation on DocOps website. Right? And the last slide is questions. So I'm not sure if anything was posted to the chat. Let me see if I look at it. There's probably nothing in there. But if you have any questions, feel free to post it in the chat window. Or Melanie, is that pound 6?
Okay, now is the time to ask any questions you have. Just a reminder, you can put any questions in the Q&A box that can be found on the right-hand side of your screen, or if you hover over the center of the WebEx screen and click the ellipses, the dot, dot, dot at the bottom, you'll see an option for Q&A, and you can click that to maximize it. You can type your questions in there, and then we'll go ahead and answer them verbally. Or if you'd rather ask a question over the phone, you can also do that at this time. You can click #6 on your telephone keypad, and that will unmute your line, so you can go ahead and chime in. Let's just give it a second for any questions to come in. Okay, we have a question. My current version is 9.1. The upgrade roadmap, does that also apply for this old version?
Okay, so the question is, my current version is 9.1. The upgrade roadmap, does it apply to this old version? Yes, it does. Now, having said that, I'd be more than happy to assist you with your upgrade. Please reach out to me, and I'd like to make sure that your upgrade goes well. You should not ideally have a problem. Just that if you realize in 9.1, we had the old consoles, and moving after 9.5 onwards, we went to the new console, right? The server console and the recording console, those went away, and that got replaced by Portal. And so I'd just like to have a quick chat with you on what your scenarios are and what your environments are, and then we could take it from there. So feel free to send an email to me, and we could take it from there.
Any other questions? What if we want to put the enterprise dashboard in a Docker container? The MAC address will not be the same.
Right. So that's a good point, Carl, and that has come up before as well. So again, it's a two-way street, right? Why do we need the MAC address? Because we need to make sure that, and even because our customers want to make sure that they are able to keep a track of their usage. Right. So ideally, I would say that even if you are using, there's a good chance you could use the dashboard in a non-Dockerized way. Right? You could put it on an EC2 instance, which is not Docker. Or if that's not the case, I would strongly recommend to connect the enterprise dashboard in a Docker container to an RDS. right? That way, at least the data usage data and would stay in the RDS. And then you could, next time you bring up another dashboard, it comes up. Now, yes, you're right, the MAC address would not be the same. And I've had a couple of customers mention that. And then, again, I get on a call with them, look at what their use case is, and accordingly we decide what the next course of action would be for that. So if you have any customer call that has this question, let me know what the use case there is, and we could talk, or I would be more than happy to talk to the customer about this. Okay, no more questions? Okay, Melanie has put a poll on the screen for you guys to share the quality of praise or CAP topic. So
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
That's fine, I figured. So.
I was doing the whole wrap-up thing, and then I was on mute. Okay, so thank you. As Kaustubh said, I just put out a poll. If you could please let us know what you thought of the topic today, that would be great. And if there are no more questions, then I think we're okay to go ahead and close out for today. So thank you, everyone, so much for joining. Thank you, Kaustubh, for another great presentation. If you have any questions that you think of later on that you didn't think to ask today, you can always put them into the DevTest community. We have experts constantly monitoring that space to answer any questions you have. Or feel free to reach out. We're happy to help you and direct you to the right place to get your question answered. Other than that, just thank you, everyone, so much for joining, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Bye-bye.